Hey everyone, I am day 2 into Porto, Portugal. This is the recap of round 2. I was faced against a FIDE master 2100. Game 2 was a really tense game in which I pressed my opponent with an attack, and we see what happens. I'm back at the hotel and let's look at this game. So I was playing a Portuguese local chess player that was 2125 rated, a FIDE master at that, and I had the black pieces. So not only am I put in a position where I have the inferior piece color, but also I am the lower seed in this game. So this was a very interesting matchup. I didn't do, again, preparation. I didn't have time to prep my opponent, and also I looked a little bit at their games, but they played e4, d4, and knight f3 in their repertoire. I just said, okay, I won't prepare because it's too extensive and I had too little time to do so. So we go into this game with zero prep against an FM. Here we go. Knight f3. So it could have been anything, so I was just expecting whatever. And so I go d5. And we play basically a type of opening with pawns that are very nice. And so yeah, there's a collide in the center. Okay, I develop like this, and usually you could play like a triangle system with the c6 push, but I decided to play b6 to get a good bishop on this diagonal. This light square bishop can often suffer if you have a pawn structure that just keeps it inside. So I tried to at least bring my bishop to b7 and then have a pawn and knight and bishop on b7 all targeting that e4 square. And you'll see this is a big theme in this game because this e4 square was very important. And so at this point it's pretty normal. White can play either d4 here, or they can even play d3 if they want to take up the e4 square. And it's always judging on which one they're gonna play. Rook c1 was played here, kind of looking, kind of luring onto this pawn on c7, maybe with like a knight b5, or even, I don't know, bishop b5 and bishop c6, something like this, targeting the c6 square. I didn't want any part of it and played a6 immediately. d4, and I go bishop t6, completing my development. And here I took a very long time. I have 1 hour and 26 minutes, and on this turn on queen e7 I took 10 minutes. It's because there's so many things to consider here. I can castle, but that doesn't mean that I'm rid of an attack. The opponent can just attack with g4. Or I could not castle and attack them, so I could go g5, really aggressive push here. g5, knight takes, and I would have like rook g1 with some attacking chances here. Though I didn't like this knight takes h7, and of course I was calculating this, and I didn't like it with rook takes. And yeah, there's queen f3 things that would win a piece here, and it's just not good for the black pieces. So I was calculating all types of things like this, and finally went on queen e7. Kind of a non-committal move, which means that I keep my possibilities open. I want to go castles, or I want to go castles. Castles long would be very controversial because it would basically say to the white pieces, look, once you're going to be castling, since you can't castle long, once you'll be castling short, I'm going to most probably attack you with a pawn storm. So this queen e7 raises doubt in the opponent because, again, like I can castle long, but I could also castle short, and it could be a complete bluff. And so that's why I like my position from here. And as the game progresses, I like my position less and less, and this is due to patience. So queen e7 is played. And I really like my firm control over the c4 square, and even, you know, have future considerations of knight e4 with putting a really nice piece on that center square. My opponent goes queen c2, and I got a little scared here. I reluctantly didn't want to castle because of like something like knight g5 attacking h7, and on h6, I don't know, things like knight h7 kind of scared me a little bit. Knight takes, bishop takes, and just like a little bit of movement for the white pieces. And so I didn't react well to this line in my head, so I just didn't castle. I played rook c8. And rook c8 is certainly a bluff. I do not aim to play c5 here at all, because on takes it would really open up this powerful bishop onto the long diagonal. Rook c8 could be really good if the c file opens up. So if it happens that white takes my dark square bishop, which is something they really wanted to do in this game, c takes, and I could immediately look upon this file and stop the rook on c1 from going to c7 and like really nice squares coming into my position. So really like either a complete bluff or a very deep intellectual move right there. Queen e2 was played, so attacking a6. And the best engine move is literally to play like rook a8 and like just go back, because they're sort of playing a move twice in the opening, the same piece twice in the opening. So that would have been nice. Also on queen e2, the engine just is fine with castles. Bishop takes, queen takes, rook a8. No, not rook a8. c6. No, rook fe8. Completely just ignoring like the fact that I lost a pawn here, which is not my cup of tea. So here I played b5. Okay, so b5 is really interesting. I'm playing against the grain of this bishop on d3, and ultimately it has its cons, okay? Because my c pawn is now a backwards pawn, and the c6 square is now kind of terrible. So all of these factors are playing against me in this game. Bishop f5 was kind of a surprise. I had never considered this move before, and honestly, putting this bishop on this diagonal is not something I love for white, objectively speaking. So I go g6, chasing the bishop, bishop h3, and now the bishop only aims on this diagonal. So it doesn't even have going back to d3 as a possibility. So it's interesting here. My knight is pinned, but at the same time, my knight was not planning to move, but it's still... it's still a pin. A pin is a pin, right? So I go castles, and after castles, I go rook e8, just getting out of the pin, and again, firmly establishing my presence on this e4 square. I have 1, 2, 3, and then my rook 4 pieces on to, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sorry, pieces onto e4. Really crazy, right? So rook f d1 here is played. I didn't think much of this move, kind of anticipating maybe c5, but I was, to open up the rook, but I was not intending to play c5, so this is purely anticipatory. And so I go knight h5 here. At this point in the game, I tell myself I have to go with something. And I use 5 minutes to go with knight h5 here, because my plan is, okay, yes, I'm threatening this kind of dummy threat, knight f4, because it's going to be played, it's going to be stopped, obviously. But not only that, I'm opening up this here for the first time of the game and planning to go f5, f4. So a larger plan of attack, which is why I used this rook on c8 to go to e8. So it was all part of a plan to keep this rook on f8 to support this pawn into opening the f-file for this rook. Okay? So pretty classical plans here. But knight h5 is a mistake because the engine after g3 evaluates that my knight is kind of out of play, and this f5 move is lesser than queen c2 is given by the engine, and then knight df6. I would have played this actually. I would have played this comfortably, especially that this bishop is kind of winding down because all or almost all of my pawns are on light squares, which means this bishop is heavily played against. So anyways, bishop takes d7, big surprise to me, was played here, which gives the bishop pair. Okay, so really important to realize that now I have the bishop pair in this position, and I really don't want to give it up, obviously, because it is seen as an advantage in chess to have two bishops against one bishop, right? And so, okay, queen c2 was played here, and I go f5. And this is where I start to get impatient. At this point in the game, I feel heavily like it's my time to shine. It's my time to attack, and I need to get something going fast. I need to open up the f-file, I need to activate my rooks, and I need to open up this king, okay? So that's why I went f5 immediately. Though, there is a line where I could have played more patient and reaped more rewards. So, f6, okay? f6 would have been really interesting to play. f6 takes up this e5 square to prevent knight e5 things, while, you know, just like playing against this knight here. And here, what does white really play? I feel like in this game I did really well to play against my opponent's pieces and make them passive. This knight has nowhere to go, right? Nothing. Like, it's beautiful. This bishop is really like imprisoned. Like, my bishop is taking up a3. This bishop is locked into their position. These rooks are not really doing much. This rook has aspirations to go up against this pawn, but as long as my bishop defends this, it's so nice. It's so clear that this is not a threat. On knight d2, however, now I have an advantage with f5. Unlike in the game, f5 immediately, which will explain my mistake. f5 gives knight e5 now. And so if the knight would have gone to d2 and now I play at f5, there wouldn't have been knight e5 now. Knight e5 is a really strong move that plays against my bishops and plays against my pawn push. It's a really good move here. And I knew about this move, which is why I played this immediately, because I had anticipated it, though I hadn't anticipated how much it worked for the white pieces. Why is this move good? Here, you're playing against this bishop. My bishop is officially covered, and I cannot take this twice and quote-unquote win a pawn because of knight takes b5, which is a discovered attack onto my rook. And if I take, well then I would be down the exchange. And if I didn't take and removed my rook, the white pieces have a lot of attacking possibilities on my position, and I'm just like not comfortable with any of this. And this bishop is razoring through my position. Razoring, is that a verb? We don't know. We'll check that after recording this. So anyways, knight e5. I looked at sacking the exchange, though the rewards are not big here. In fact, it's not good at all. Yeah, I really can't do anything with this knight here. And it's a tempo move, so that's another part of the masterpiece of this knight move. I need to move my queen. So once I do, you can now stop my f-pawn from moving. And this still is part of this knight move, because the knight liberates this pawn to stop my advancement. And now my attack is kind of slowed down. And I don't know if you've realized, in this position up till now, from these last two moves, you are closing the position as the white pieces. Why is this so good and such an important factor here? Because I have the bishop pair. And so bishops thrive in open positions. When you close the position, two knights, or knights just in general, become strong, as you can see here, with the knight on e5. So, I go with g5. Again, impatient. I want to force things. But just knight f6, the patient move to recalibrate this knight to e4 after f4 is played, is completely fine. Rook here, and then knight e4. If knight takes, I would take with the f pawn and place my bishop on this diagonal one day. Okay? But okay, after f4, I go g5. Super attacking move, super aggressive move. I am opening up things. You cannot just defend your pawn with g3, because that's the point of queen g7 that I had seen in the future for. This wins here. I take on f4, you take back, and then I take with my knight, and this pawn is pinned to the king. And my opponent defends well with knight e2. Knight e2 was a really important move for this game, because my next move, took like the entirety of my time. At this point in the game, I have 36 minutes to my opponent's 39 minutes, so we have the same amount of time. But on this 21st move, I take more than 2/3 of my allotted time left. And again, I need to get to 40 moves to get an additional bonus 30 minutes of time. And I'm at move 22, so I have 18 moves left to finish off my time here. So I have to play quick, and I panic here. I just have nothing to do. I have no plans. And the right plan is, I'll explain it later, but it's b4 here, and we'll understand why b4, which looks anti-positional, is good. So I go rook c8, and on queen d3, I collapse. No, it's not collapse, but I get to a point of 10 minutes left on my clock for the 18 moves remaining, and I play bishop takes e5. Bishop takes e5 is difficult. It's a difficult move to come up with. I only played it because I liked the variations that came out of it, but for the long-term purposes of bishop takes c5, it's a really impatient impulse move. Let's break it down. It's really interesting. If I take here and takes back, okay, so I had calculated on d takes e5, I gain with c5. Like I gain a lot, and I can even sacrifice a pawn to open up the bishop for pawn takes, and my bishop and queen can look onto this, right? So I had that prepared. And on f takes, okay, I was like, yes, I have f4, and finally I can break through. The thing here is that b4 is once again important, and I said that I would talk about b4 being important. Why is this important? By giving up the bishop here, which is a valid plan, it's just I have to check my back, you know? By taking here, my bishop is not taking up a3. It's not taking up c7. So what do? I have to cover a3, because otherwise this bishop becomes tyrannical on this a3 f8 diagonal. So I have to cover the diagonal first with b4. And this pawn looks really, really bad, but I assure you, it's not bad of a pawn. I can defend pretty heavily here and maintain this and make this bishop terrible for the rest of its life, because now it's really behind its pawn structure. So b4 was a must, and I just go straight into f4. I played this in 1 second. I just go straight into f4. No, I played this in 30 seconds. So I go straight into f4. Because I have 10 minutes to make 17 moves now. I'm in kind of time pressure. f4 is impatient because it lets for bishop a3. Bishop a3, what a great move. Bishop a3 is a tempo move. Again, these tempo moves are really killing me, because that knight e5 earlier on was really good as well. Bishop a3 attacks my rook. And here I have to move my rook and kind of stop, put the brakes on my attack. I go rook f7. And this gives a really cool move, which I saw, but I was ready to play against because I knew I was already less good here. e6. e6 is really strong. The engine on this analysis doesn't see it immediately, but once I play it, it says, wow, outrageously good. This pawn is a passed pawn, and it was a protected passed pawn, and it becomes a really strong pawn. Why? Because it meets the defense of this bishop, and it's so hard for me to attack it and pressure it, and ultimately win it back. So on e6, again, I have to move my rook f6, and then e7. And on rook e6, why rook e6? Because rook takes c7 is threatened. Rook takes, and then e8 queen. So I have to go rook e6 to cover the e8 square. And on rook e6, better for black here, better for white, sorry. Just gives an advantage to the white pieces. After takes rook f1, and I can't defend this pawn more. I had calculated some things like this, but you can still take on c7. Rook takes, and then queen takes e4 with e8, queen and mate. So check, queen f8, and then checkmate with the bishop here defending. So this wasn't played. Thankfully, my opponent completely blundered that, but still played rook f1. That's really nice, really pressures f4, and I go rook e8 immediately. Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I have 4 minutes now to play 15 moves, so this is really, really crazy. But I take at least 30 seconds every move, so this is time trouble right now. I'm in deep time trouble, and my opponent has 21 minutes left. So taking here, and then I take back, and now rook f2. And now I have to reroute this bishop. So my plan here, although I can't do the same and double my rooks because of this bishop, my plan is to play f3. Support this pawn no matter how I can, and just go on this f3 square to put in some threats, okay? So rook f1, and now bishop f5. Now I know I'm losing this pawn. I don't have the manpower to defend because of queen d2. Even bishop c1 I had seen. I attack the queen, and white played so fast here. They have 14 minutes. Queen d2, which I had seen, and I had not seen what they played. Queen d2 just wins this pawn on the spot and wins probably the game. So queen f3 was played, and I had missed this, but it's not that good. Okay, yes, you are forking my two pieces, but here I'm happy to give a pawn in exchange for the promised land, f3. At least now I have attacking chops. I'm forking the pawn and knight. Okay, I'm forking the pawn and knight. If you take, you lose the game because I have bishop takes f3 check, discover check on this king, and I win the queen. If you move your knight, white becomes uncomfortable very quickly because you give this f4 square, and now my knight jumps into the attack, attacking your queen and attacking this pawn twice, and it can get very nasty very quick. If you play something slightly bad like queen e4, f takes g2 is attacking this rook, and well, this g2 pawn is out, right, for white, so I'm threatening knight h3, winning a lot. And so you have to sack back the exchange and take my rook first, maybe. King takes, and this would be slight advantage for the black pieces. So none of this was played. They sacrificed the exchange. Rook takes f3. Interesting. I had seen this, and I thought I had calculated and assumed that this was the better line, but okay, here I'm not losing, though white inflicts a lot of pressure on me. A lot of pressure on this rook. I have to react really good and fast. I have 1 minute at this point. I have 1 minute on move 31, 9 moves to play my next moves in less than 1 minute for the rest of the game. For the rest of the 9 moves until I get bonus time. I go queen g6, which is the best move. threatening queen b1, maybe getting the knight back, and this is where I calculate badly. So after knight g3, I had assumed this move, I had seen that, and the idea is just to go to e4 and f6, and you're using the weakness of my queen and king to use this g3 square, because I cannot take this knight because of rook takes, and I lose on the spot to this beautiful pin. So what do I do here? Here I played queen b1. Queen b1 check looked really nice to me, because the king goes out and then I do this, or if knight here, the knight doesn't go to e4 and I can just go back and offer a draw on paper with a small repetition of moves. But I completely missed rook f1, which wins on the spot. Rook f1, and okay, I have like 1 minute to play this, so I'm really in time pressure, and I didn't manage my time really well this game. But rook f1, simply put, attacks my queen and attacks my rook twice, and basically forces queen g6. And in my calculation, where I went wrong is that I just thought I could take this rook and trade and get this knight away, but my rook is pinned. I go back to g6, and this wins on the spot for white, but they missed it. They have a forced line. Queen takes f7, check. It's really important that you go with the queen with check. Queen takes, rook takes, and then king takes, and then knight takes h5. And here white has two pawns, a knight and a bishop for a rook. It's completely winning for the white pieces, but he didn't play this. He played knight e4. Knight e4, which is a move that I had already seen from a previous calculation, as I told you. And it's an imposing move. You're threatening that g5, and here I crumble a little bit because I believe that my opponent's move is good, even though it's bad. This gives a draw here. And if I just play the very patient king g7, again, on that patience theme, the patient king g7 going out of the pin. If I find this, I'm on move 35. I have 5 moves to go until move 40 bonus time, and it's completely equal. Like, queen takes, they can go to an endgame here, but okay, 2 pawns, and the exchange for a rook, and it's pretty drawing. I can draw this even if they play badly. I can even win this if possible. So I missed king here, and I played c6 instead. The odd thing is, I saw c6 and the tactic that comes with it. I did, and I assumed that it was the best that I had in this position, giving an unfavorable endgame with 2 pawns up to my opponent. Though when you see a bad move, look for a better one. And so I played c6 with like 4 seconds left on the clock. Yeah, it was that or I was flagging, so I had to play something in the immediate moment, and I play c6. Queen takes, rook takes, king takes, and then knight d6. So the c6 mistake is that I'm giving the d6 square, and in terms that just gives a fork 3 moves later, and it's all forced. And here we end up in an endgame, bishop against knight, and I'm down 2 pawns. I'm down 2 pawns, and it's very, very winning. And we just play it on. I'm just going to spare you the details because he plays pretty perfectly. I mean, everything pretty much wins. You just have to bring your king up and either force this 2v1 or attract my king with the 2v1 and then get a pawn downstream and force it down my throat, which that happened. So I got my king attracted to h5, and then he pushes e6, which is very nice. And on h5 takes, king e4, and the idea is just that he's going to come here with king e5, king d6, king d7, and it's going to be winning for the white pieces. If I go king g6, king here, and it kind of makes a nice wall here, and I have absolutely nothing in this position, it's completely over. I can try to stop it, but, you know, he just takes my pawns here, and it's completely over. So there you go, round 2 against a 2100 FM. His peak was like 2350, so he has seen more successful days, but you know, he was in form for this game, except for this tactic here with the queen takes f7, and overall outplayed me positionally. You know, the positional moves like knight e5 that he played in the game, or doubling rooks to sink in on my f4 pawn, were really strong by him, and it was a good game overall by my opponent, and congrats to them for winning so strongly. And so there we go. That is recap of round 2. I lost, and I have 0.5 out of 2. And today I play a 0 rated opponent, which is kind of interesting with the white pieces. So hopefully I can share some positive news tomorrow in recap number 3. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm wishing you a happy, happy day.